Some ships were feared not by enemy fleets.
Was already overloaded, poorly balanced, and lacked real structural integrity and can't recover and feel like a suicide mission as crews battle control under rain.
Sailors felt exposed and helpless against basic weather conditions. The ship carried freight efficiently, but that meant nothing fixed the deadly design flaw.
The vessel never improved and mysteriously disappeared without a trace in 1918, taking all 300 scans with it.
Sailors disliked the HMS Captain because it was top-heavy, unstable, and poorly suited for real naval operations right from its launch in 1869.
Early trials showed promise, but added armor made it sluggish and dangerous in waves. Crews felt frustrated and terrified as it...
Although some modifications were attempted, the design itself flew. The ship never redeemed rotation, never fulfilled as
The USS Maine was loved for its firepower, but hated for how dangerous it felt to serve aboard. With sailing, one magazine explosion could end everything instantly.
It had inadequate safety systems and weak bulkheads. Early performance seemed adequate, but as tensions rose in Havana, crews learned its weaknesses the hard way.
The Navy failed to address safety concerns properly, so conditions never improved. Serving on the Maine felt increasingly risky until it led.
The HMS Hood terrified even experienced sailors because its thin armor made it real fast, but also wildly vulnerable to enemy fire in any real fight.
Combat operations were risky and magazines so exposed they could detonate from a single hit. Engagements lasted only minutes with no time for damage control.
The design saw no real improvements and was destroyed by a single salvo from Bismarck in 1941. Crews called it a beautiful.
The USS Indianapolis was rushed in to serve with inexperienced crews and inadequate escort protection, leaving sailors feeling isolated and doomed. Communication failures and navigation problems were common. It operated alone, but vulnerabilities deadly despite hopes that better procedures would help.
The ship never received proper support and became more famous for its tragic sinking in 1945 than its service, with crews.
Early Liberty ship crews struggled with vessels that looked sturdy but behaved unpredictably in heavy weather due to rushed welded construction. Stress fractures could split the hull in minutes, terrifying sailors who felt trapped as cracks appeared. Structural management was poor and mistakes turned fatal instantly.
Over time, better welding and design improved safety, but early crews paid the price while learning the vessel's limits in the brutal North Atlantic convoy.
The RMS Titanic was widely disliked by experienced crew for feeling overconfident and poorly prepared for emergencies on its maiden voyage.
Ice warnings, Captain. Ignore them. Full speed. Not enough lifeboats. Safety drills are inadequate.
The ship never recovered from its reputation and was lost on its maiden voyage in 1912, leaving crews bitter about the preventable disaster. Early USS Forrestal crews feared their own flight deck more than enemy action because powerful but unreliable fuel systems leaked and ignited mid-operations.
Sailors constantly monitored systems, adding stress to already dangerous carrier ops. While revolutionary, it felt unsafe at first until later procedures helped.
With time, better safety upgrades improved conditions, but the 1960 Funnerby were scarring still beaver.
The HMS Vanguard was one of the last battleships, but sailors found it unforgiving and pointless for modern warfare with obsolete gun systems. Crews described constant machinery breakdowns and aging equipment, while some upgrades were made. The ship never found real purpose and was scrapped without action. Sailors distrusted the USS Thresher because it felt more experimental than operational, with complex nuclear systems leaving little margin for error underwater.
Failures were common and reliability for a nuclear boat, and emergence procedures hid dangers and never improvements. But
sailors found the HMS Dreadnought frustrating because it entered service before gunnery combat confidence solved.
Handling during battle was awkward, later fire control helped, but many sailors remembered early operations as disappointing and hard to trust in real fights.
The turret system demanded precision and punished mechanical failures.
It became infamous after the December 7th attack. Reliability concerns never fully went away, despite number and blizzards, destroying Princess and Emperor Victor more.
Operating the USS Pueblo felt thrilling and stressful at the same time, with extremely limited defensive capabilities and isolation on secretive missions. Communication problems dominated every patrol, and minimal armament added constant pressure. Sailors joked it would tie sea to capture.
Sailors found the HMS Birkenhead uneasy because it never felt structurally trustworthy, with unexplained hull problems damaging confidence.
Difficult to navigate and prone to structural failure in storms. Concerns in respect for capacity before its wreck.
Sailors feared the USS Scorpion because it demanded perfection at all times with nuclear system and deep down capabilities, leaving almost no margin for error.
Technologically advanced but punished mistakes brutally. Lost in 1968, earning respect mixed with dread.
Sailors found the RMS Britannic disliked mainly for how vulnerable it felt during wartime hospital operations with limited defensive options.
Medical staff could not defend against submarines or mines. Basic vulnerability never changed despite facility upgrades, leaving but never.
Sailors found the USS Akron challenging and unpredictable with structural weaknesses, limited stability, and demanding flight characteristics.
It performed in calm but lacked weather resistance. Minor improvements helped but not safety, and crews sought a crew experiments at crest before if either crashed.
Early nuclear submarine crews suffered from inadequate radiation shielding, frequent reactor problems, and constant mechanical failure. Them feel like like test subjects. Operations were punishing. Over time, major upgrades improved safety and reliability, turning later boats into respected vessels.
One exocet could be fatal. The Navy failed to upgrade defenses properly, so survivability never improved, and it was sunk in the Falklands with heavy loss.
The USS Liberty terrified communication specialists because its intelligence mission made it incredibly valuable yet wildly vulnerable to attack from any nation.
Operations were secretive and classified, risking friendly fire. It never became truly safe and was attacked by Israeli forces, nearly sunk with heavy casualties.
Structural failures and weather problems were common in Pacific ops, designed a totally version to prove, but both airships ended before fixes, never earning trust.
The HMS Glorious was widely disliked for feeling abandoned and tactically misused with inadequate fighter escort and poor decisions.
Isolation made routine missions fatal, attempts to improve air cover failed, destroying confidence, and it was lost with massive casualties and a needless tragedy. Sailors on early destroyers feared their own depth charges more than enemy submarines because poorly secured weapons could detonate from rough seas.
Secure those canisters! The storm's getting worse! Hold fast! It's pitching hard!
The USS Wasp was one of the early fleet carriers, but sailors found it unforgiving and armored with risky fuel characteristics.
Constant fire prevention. Safety attempts underway. It's not survivable!
Torpedoed, significant casualties.
Sailors distrusted the HMS Repulse because it felt more like a battle cruiser than a proper battleship, with light armor reducing defense.
Armor failures were predictable, minor improvements helped, but design never matured, and it was sunk by aircraft alongside Prince of Wales.
Sailors found the USS Lexington frustrating because it operated as a carrier before aviation problems were solved, with dangerous deck fire. Aircraft handling was awkward, later procedures improved ops, but early dangers lingered, and it was lost to internal explosions in 1942.
Sailors found the HMS Courageous harsh and poorly designed for its role, with inadequate armor and limited seaworthiness.
It lacked defensive strength compared to purpose-built ships. Minor improvements failed to fix margins, and crews saw it as a converted mistake.
The USS Hammond was disliked mainly for how exposed it felt during dangerous destroyer operations with minimal armor.
Submarine-infested waters were deadly for small destroyers. Anti-sub equipment improved, but basic vulnerability never changed. These vessels punished mistakes, tested morale, and left lasting impressions on the men who sailed them. Their stories etched forever in naval history.